And just because some animals have some similar features doesn't necessarily mean a common ancestor. It may mean a common designer. Colin Patterson, he's an evolutionist, senior paleontologist at the British Museum of Natural History. They have the largest collection of fossils in the whole world. And he wrote a book supporting evolution, and someone asked him why he didn't include any missing links in his book. And he responded to this letter. He said, quote, "I fully agree with your comments on the lack of evolutionary transitions in my book. If I know of any, fossil or living, I would have certainly included them. I will lay it on the line, there is not one such fossil." So there's no missing links. There are trillions of fossils that you can study, but there are no missing links, and there has to be if evolution is true. D.M.S. Watson said, quote, "The theory of evolution is a theory universally accepted not because it can be proven true, but because the alternative, special creation, is clearly incredible. You see, a watch demands a watchmaker, a design demands a designer, and a creation demands a creator." And they have all these organs now.
You mean vestigial organs, right?
Right. They originally had 200 of these organs, now been reduced to a handful. They also say that we go through the process of evolution as an embryo. We have these different gill slits. These are actually folds of skin that develop into the respiratory and hearing tracts. One of the most common examples, they say, of evolution is the peppered moth of England. And there you had 95% light moss and 5% black moss. And what happened was you had the factories, they started burning coals, and the trees started turning black from the soot. So they counted the moss again, and now they had 95% black moss and 5% white. And so basically all that happened was the white moth lost its camouflage and was eaten. That's all that happened. And that is a sign of microevolution, which are minor changes in the structure and function of a plant and animal. And macroevolution is something completely different. And it's when the teaching that one kind evolves into another. And this has never been proven by science. And basically the key teaching of evolution is that life comes from non-living matter, spontaneous generation. But there's tremendous complexity in life in our bodies. For example, we have 50 trillion cells in our bodies. Carl Sagan said that in the simplest cell we know anything about, we have information equivalent to 100 million pages of Encyclopedia Britannica. And in the cell, everything is independent and codependent on everything else. There's tremendous complexity in all life forms. For example, this is a little fish called a sailcat, and if you look on one side, you can see the skeleton of the fish. And then if you turn it around, you can see it looks very much like our Lord on the cross. Very interesting. I don't think evolution did that. A Cray computer can do 6 billion calculations per second. Estimates are that the little honeybee has to do 1 trillion calculations per second in order to fly. That means the little honeybee is 166 times faster than the Cray computer, and the honeybee can heal itself. But the conclusion of evolutionists is the computer, of course, is designed, but the honeybee evolved. People ask why the stars are so far away. Very simple. God put the stars very far away. That doesn't prove evolution whatsoever. People talk about alien life forms, extraterrestrial life forms. Well, conditions outside the Earth are far more destructive than probably anyone suspected before space exploration began. Deadly radiation, poisonous gases, extreme gravitational forces, gigantic explosions, and the absence of the proper atmosphere and specific chemical elements. Just the temperature extremes in outer space would make almost any kind of life either so hot that it would vaporize or so cold that it would be completely rigid, brittle, and dead. And many of these space alien civilizations should have technology at least superior to ours and would have colonized our whole solar system, at least with mechanical robots. And they say everything started from a big bang 20 billion years ago. But in physics, there's a law called the conservation of angular momentum, which says that if you had the Big Bang that exploded everything, everything should be traveling in the same direction. But we've got the sun spinning clockwise and all 9 planets spinning counterclockwise, and we have 60 moons and 11 of them are spinning backwards. When we look at the Earth is 7,900 miles from the North to South Pole. It's the exact right size to accept the exact right amount of energy from the sun, and it is the exact distance from the sun to give us the perfect temperature. And we could go into hundreds of examples and how precisely balanced the Earth is. And if you change these parameters by several percent, in some cases even 0.1%, we'd either freeze to death or roast to death. And so basically the next question becomes, is the solar system and the Earth very young? And really, the evolution-creation debate can be settled pretty quickly if you can prove the Earth is young. As the sun burns, it's losing 5 million tons per second, which means it's shrinking, which means it used to be heavier, which means that gravity was also stronger. So even 20 or 30 million years ago, the sun would be so big it would touch the Earth. Comets should only last 10 to 15,000 years before they're blown apart by the solar wind. Our calendars only go back to the year 4000 BC. How come they don't go back further than that? The population growth curve looked like it started about 4,500 years ago. Well, there was a flood about 4,400 years ago, and 8 people got off the ark. Another question is, how many billions of people should we have by this time? So where are all the people? At least, where are all the bones?